Hello everyone, this is Grace. It is May the 10th, 2024, and today we're going to be taking a look at some definitions. We're going to be taking a look at the definition of sin, iniquity, and transgression. So let's go ahead and get started. Our first verse is John 3:4. Whosoever committeth sin transgresseth also the law. For sin is the transgression of the law. So I started in the New Testament because the New Testament actually gives a definition. It's a little bit trickier when we get to the Old Testament. You'll see what I mean when we get there. So sin. Now I want you to take note that the first definition is the one that's used the most often. Okay, so I just want you to take note as we read through this definition. So the first definition that's given is to be without a share in. To be without a share in is not the way that we typically use sin. To be without a share in, we just discussed this kind of in the previous video, human. And you'll see that a lot of this is going to relate. I'll relate back to that video several times, probably. What I realized was that I had combined a lot of the scriptures for that video and this one. I took most of them out, but I left at least one or two in there. So I'll probably be referring back to it again. To be without a share in. But we know that to be without we're in bondage. To be without a share in, they're talking about being under the dominion of Satan as opposed to being under the dominion of God. That's the very first definition that they're using for sin in the New Testament. So that means when they refer to sin, they're referring to it. The most often they're using this meaning and not the meaning that we commonly recognize sin for, which is to transgress the law. But so that's the first one. So then you jump to the second one, to miss the mark. Literally, this can be anything. We've spoken the previous video on human. We spoke about how if you're under the dominion, if you put that person over you, then you share in their sin. Okay? If I say you're going to be our king and I put you over myself as a king, then I am going to share in the decisions that you make as king, good and bad. All right. So your bad decisions are going to affect me as well. It's my sin in some ways. Right. But so you can miss the mark and you don't have to do anything. Maybe you put your trust in the wrong person. Missing your mark is not a sin. That's not what sin means. That's not the way we understand it. To err or be mistaken, that's not a sin. And we're at number 3. It is, it's part of the definition, but I'm talking about our common understanding. When we see the word sin, what we think automatically. We're at the third definition and we still haven't gotten to our proper understanding. To miss or wander from the path of uprightness and honor, to do or go wrong. Now this is closer because it has uprightness in here. But we typically think about sin as this final one here. And we're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're 5 definitions down. To wander from the law of God, violate God's law to sin. This is the definition which we know. And it is the least used definition, well, under the first part anyway. Or you can say it's the second one. But these are all different. This is right here. It's talking about bondage. How are you going to go from bondage to actually breaking a law of God or to violate God's law? There has to be a law for you to sin. That which is done wrong, a sin, an offense, a violation of the divine law in thought or in act. That's a great definition. Collectively, the complex or aggregate of sins committed either by a single person or by many. Sin. It's when you break the law. It's when you violate the law of God. Now, you can sin against a man if you violate their laws, but if you violate a law against a man, but this is the Bible. So we're talking about, unless it specifies, we're speaking specifically of the law of God. So you understand you're going to find two words. You're going to find three. You're going to find transgress. You're going to find trespass, which as far as I could tell was the same as transgress. I didn't spend a lot of time on it, but because it seemed to be the same thing as transgress. But then you'll also find iniquity. So let's keep going until we come across those words and we'll look them up. Oh, I don't know which one is transgress. Here it is, 458, so we can look it up here. Okay. Transgress. The condition of without law, because ignorant of it, because of violating it. This is the correct definition here. Contempt in violation of law, iniquity, wickedness. Illegality. That's a good definition. That is a violation of the law. Wickedness, iniquity, transgress the law. It's when you do something that violates the law of God. It's when you actually move your body and commit a violation against the will. Move your hands, your body, something like that, and commit a violation against the will of God. It's something that you actually do. That's what transgress means. I didn't look at the definition for it because I knew what it was from the Bible. Otherwise, I would be able to break that down for you more, but the Bible's pretty clear what it is, so I didn't even look it up until now. That's the first time I think I read it. Yeah, I don't remember if I even read this. I don't know. It's pretty clear. Maybe I read it in the Old Testament. I think that's what I did. I read it in the Old Testament, not the new one. Here we go. There's a lot, and I remember there's a lot of words for transgression. No, there's a lot of words for sin. Yeah, there's a lot of words for transgression, I think. No. Okay. Transgression, rebellion. This is a good definition. It's sin that has a lot of definitions. And they're not all. Some of them were changed and made up. A revolt. Yeah, I like this definition. I remember it now. I didn't read the New Testament. A Psalm of David, Michelle. Blessed is he whose transgression is forgiven, whose sin is covered. Blessed is the man unto whom the Lord imputeth not iniquity, and in whose spirit there is no guile. This is our scripture here. I acknowledge my sin unto thee, and mine iniquity have I not hid. I said, I will confess my transgressions unto the Lord, and thou forgavest the iniquity of my sin. This is one of the common uses for the word sin. There's other uses as well, but this is one of the common ones. It was changed. Listen, these people, they are something else. You cannot, listen, if I say to you, what is the definition of book? You can't say a book is a book. A definition of a book is book. If I say, what is the definition for a chair? The definition for chair is it's a chair. What's the definition of a rug? What's the definition of read? Read is to read. What's the definition of sin? Sin is sin. This is the problem with those Old Testament definitions. Is that when they change them, they don't try to define them. They just put the word sin in there. sin. And they changed it because there's no such thing as a sin offering. They changed this word, sin offering, because this is the word that they used all through Leviticus talking about sin offerings. There's no such thing as a sin offering. Listen, hold on. Let me try and clear this up for you. I'm going to think about what I'm going to say. Hold on. I'm going to get to a stopping point because I think I'm going to add a scripture at the end. All right. Okay, I added some scriptures at the end of the study. So we'll look at it then. That way we don't have to rush our time. Well, we may be rushing at the end, but we'll see. Keeping mercy for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin, and that will by no means clear the guilty, visiting iniquity of the fathers upon the children and upon the children's children until the third and into the fourth generation. Iniquity. Just where it says forgiving iniquity and transgression, this transgression is the same thing as trespasses. Yeah. Iniquity is a sin of the mind. Let's take a look at the definition. I didn't look up trespasses that much. I looked at a few of them. They looked exactly the same as transgression. And then I left it so that I could finish the study. I just wanted to finish the study. Perversity, depravity, iniquity, guilt or punishment of iniquity. Iniquity, guilt. Iniquity. Guilt of iniquity. Guilt. Consequence of or punishment for iniquity. Perversity. You could say it's perversity because it's going to be perverse according to the laws or dictates of whoever it is you're serving. Okay? Good or bad, it's going to be considered perverse. Evil is, well, whenever you see a word in bold like this, that's never the definition. It's supposed to give you a hint, so this is actually a good hint. Moral, according to the moral laws, it's going to be evil. Fault, iniquity, mischief, punishment of iniquity, sin. Iniquity is going to, it's a sin of the mind, a sin of thought. Yeah. So now when you see keeping mercy for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin, you could say, okay, forgiving those thoughts that you have that are perverse. Incidentally, if you don't follow, it's not a sin to be tempted. It's those thoughts that you will follow through on. I should have been more specific when I did that video, ye are gods. It's the perverse thoughts that you would actually do. It's not a sin to be tempted. Excuse me. It's not a sin to be tempted. And it's not a sin to think about things, because sometimes things will pop into your mind, which you would never do. And you can know that you would never do them when you look at your works. That's the way you know the person that you are. You look at your works. Okay. Forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin. So you can understand these are all, you can commit iniquity and not sin. You can commit a transgression and not sin. But once you know the law, then iniquity and transgression become a sin. And the inhabitant shall not say, I am sick, and the people that dwell therein shall be forgiven their iniquity. I put this in for my own self, for my own sake, because I did a study where I spoke of sin as being kind of like a disease, but I had two scriptures to support that, and I did not put either of them in here, so I put them both in this study. Because the law worketh wrath, let me start this over. Because the law worketh wrath, for where no law is, there is no transgression. This is why, once we accept Jesus, we don't need the law. The law worketh from the inside. We still have the law. We still have the law, but it's written on our hearts. Our hearts long to keep the law. And so through the Holy Spirit, we are changed by beholding Jesus to where we will keep that law. But we stay under the dominion of Jesus while we make that change. This is why you will always see works if you are a saint. You will always see them. If you're not, then you're doing the works of Satan. You can't do both. Then they said one to another, we do not well this day is... I cannot read for some reason today. Then they said one to another, we do not well this day is a day of good tidings, and we hold our peace, and we hold our peace. If we tarry till the morning light, some mischief will come upon us. Now therefore come, that we may go and tell the king's household. I put this in because for them to have held their peace would have been an act of iniquity. It's not something that anyone could have known or seen, but they knew it was wrong, and they knew that karma would be the justice that came upon them. Some mischief would have come upon them because they had done wrong, and they would have received karma for it. One witness shall not rise up against a man for any iniquity or for any sin. In any sin that he sinneth at the mouth of 2 witnesses or at the mouth of 3 witnesses shall the matter be established. If I had not come and spoken unto them, they had not had sin, but now they have no cloak for their sin. Let me go back for a moment because I just want to point out something. You cannot read a person's thoughts. I just want to make that clear. You cannot read a person's thoughts. You don't know their iniquity. You can only see the fruit of their works. So if they did a perversion, you don't know it unless you actually see the fruit of it. For instance, and we'll go back once more, if it was found out that they had kept their peace and they had been there, then you could see the works of you could see the fruit from their iniquity. But I just want to make sure you don't change the definition of iniquity to transgression here, because iniquity is a thought. It is always a thought. You can bear witness against them to their iniquity through the results only, not because you can read a mind. If I had not come and spoken unto them, they had not had sin, but now they have no cloak for their sin. Nothing to cover their sins, because it's revealed to them. I am clean without transgression. I am innocent, neither is there iniquity in me. Here's a different, I can't remember if this is a different definition for transgression or... No, that's the same one. We were looking for a different definition for sin. There's the 2403 again. All right, we'll find one. Jesus said unto them, if ye were blind, ye should have no sin. But now ye say, we see, therefore your sin remaineth. Behold, I was shapen in iniquity, and in sin did my mother conceive me. We know that the definition for sin, let's look at this one. This is a different one, 2399. It's not sin, it's bondage. In bondage. 2399. Let's just look at the one above it, because one is the current and one is the past. 2398 and 2399 are the same. One just means current, one just means past. So, but this one gives a little bit more detail. It just still doesn't give the definition of sin. It's still to sin. Miss the way, go wrong, incur guilt, forfeit, purify from uncleanness, to miss, to sin. It doesn't tell you that you are going against the laws of God. Even in this one, it's just not right. They just tampered with it so much. It just does not have the proper definition. You have to violate a law. You have to violate a law of God in order for it to be sin. Unless this is supposed to mean one of these other definitions, and it just doesn't mean violate a law of God. The Old Testament the definitions are just so messed up. They just are. I was shapen in iniquity, and in sin did my mother conceive me. They broke the law of God. Therefore, in iniquity, they made their mind up. They made the decision. Well, Adam was fully informed about his decision, but Eve, so he sinned. Eve knew the law, but she didn't understand it, so she transgressed. So he was shapen in iniquity, and in sin did my mother conceive me, in bondage, because that was the first definition that was given in the New Testament. And the definitions that we have in the Old Testament just aren't right. They both start with sin. You can't define sin as sin. That makes no sense. In bondage did my mother conceive me. Confined to death because she was under the bondage of Satan. Thou hast set my iniquities before thee, our secret sins in the light of thy countenance. The iniquities are secret because God knows what's in your heart and mind. Who forgiveth all thine iniquities, who healeth all thy diseases. I put this in again for me, for a previous video that I did where I compared sin to a disease. For the iniquity of his covetousness was I wroth, and smote him. I hid me and was wroth, and he went on forwardly in the way of his heart. Let's think about this. For the iniquity of his covetousness. Covetousness is when you desire something that your neighbor has. So let's say your neighbor has money and you desire money. So then you have, in essence, according to Paul, you have made an idol of that money by coveting it. Because you want money and you want more of it. Okay? So that becomes an idol to you. An idol is something that you worship in your mind, and therefore it becomes iniquity. It is a thought. For the iniquity of his covetousness was I wroth. For your hands are defiled with blood, and your fingers with iniquity. Your lips have spoken lies, your tongue has muttered perverseness. Iniquity is a thought. This word fingers does not mean fingers. Now it doesn't. I know you're going to look and you're going to see all those words where it says put blood on the tip of your finger and sprinkle it and sprinkle it, sprinkle. It does not mean that. I looked at those verses. It came from the mistake of one man, because it's impossible. It's impossible to actually, there's no way more than one person made this mistake. One man looked and he saw there's a couple of verses in there where the word is translated properly as fingers. There's some men who had 6 fingers and 6 toes or something like that. The word means wheel is what it means. It's by your wheel. It'll say something like, you know what, let's just look at some of the, uses. It never means fingers. It never means fingers. And when you see that it uses fingers and there's no way to change it, then it's wrong. Okay? Because it doesn't mean fingers at all. The very next word after it means fingers. This one. Same word, but completely different meaning. But this is in Aramaic. And this word can be used properly as fingers. This one can be translated as fingers because it means your will. But that's not what it means. And when you look at it, if you're thinking, no, Grace is wrong. No, you're wrong. You're mistaken. It cannot mean fingers. It's iniquity is not something that you do. In your fingers with iniquity. Absolutely not. Then the magician said unto Pharaoh, this is the finger of God. God is a spirit. He don't have fingers. It was the will of God. And thou shalt take the blood of the bullock. No, we don't need any of those. All of those are wrong. And you can say that this is figurative. Okay? You can say that this is figurative. It doesn't necessarily make it wrong. Other things make hold on. I'm thinking about, sprinkling. You can say that this is figurative. It doesn't necessarily make this wrong. You could say it's just figurative for something else, but it's not a finger. It just can't be. It's not. And the priest shall dip his finger. No, and the priest shall take blood. I'm trying to find one where it's not fake. Sprinkle it with his finger. Take the blood with his finger. Here we are. And the Lord delivered unto me 2 tables of stone written with the finger of God, written with the will of God. And there was yet a battle in Gath, where it was a man of great stature that had on every hand. So it talks about the hand first. 6 fingers. Now, why does it say fingers instead of will? Because it's precise. You use your fingers to pick up something precisely with your will. Okay? It's being, I think in the definition it used the word grasp. Hold on. Let me refresh my memory real quick. From the same as 6648 in the sense of grasping. In the sense of grasping. Because you're grasping with your mind. And then your mind, your will, controls your hands. That's why it's translated properly as fingers here. But it is not what it means. And on every foot, 6 toes. It's supposed to mean fingers and toes? That doesn't even make sense. It's not an appendage. This is the same. When I consider thy heavens, the work of thy fingers, the work of thy will. My hands to war, my fingers to fight. You don't fight with your fingers. You fight, you have the will to fight. Think about it like this. It's like this. I go to work from 9 to 5 every day so that I can get my fingers on that wad of cash that I get at the end of the week. Most of you are working in jobs. You don't will to work there. What you will for is the money. But you're not going to put your fingers on no cash. You're going to put your fingers on a credit card, a checkbook, the goods that are shown for the money. To pay your bills, you got lights, you got heat, you got a fancy car, a nice house, your wife has got her hair did, her nails done. You have the goods to show that you had your fingers on a wad of cash. But that's figurative, okay? The point is supposed to be the will, and the precise will which has been manifested. And specifically, and that's why they used the word fingers. It's clear to me. I don't know if it's clear to you, but I know that this word cannot be translated as fingers because it means will. He winketh his eyes, he speaketh with his feet, he teaches with his fingers. Let me read that again. He winketh with his eyes, he speaketh with his feet. He teaches with his with his will. I don't think he speaks with his feet, but we're not going to get into that right now. Okay, but bind them upon thy fingers, bind them upon your mind, write them upon the table in thine heart. What good would it do to bind it upon your fingers? Really? Is that logical? No, bind them in your mind. Write them upon the table of thine heart. Know them and do them. And want to do them. Because it's supposed to be your will to do the works of God. Anyway, that's what that means. We're at 30 minutes. How many verses do we have left? Oh, we have enough. We'll do another video. Because we only about halfway through, I think. So we'll stop there. Let's see where we will pick up. I thought I was going to get it done in one video, or I would have went ahead and looked at the... Yeah, we've got a few. We'll talk about sin again at the end. All right, I will talk with you in the next video.